Well, listening to that exchange with Beth Rippey and the Prime Minister is the Armed Forces Minister, Luke Pollard. Great to have you here. So today it's been confirmed we're going to spend 5% of GDP on defence by 2035. Would this have happened without Donald Trump?
Well, he's certainly been making a case for increasing defence spending for quite some time. I think the new era of threats has largely made the argument persuasive because we know that the United Kingdom, our NATO allies, are facing more threats from Russia in particular, but from increasingly countries like Iran, North Korea, Russia working together, trading weapons to be able to threaten not just our security, but those of our allies. Getting to 5% in 2035 is a really big step for the alliance. But it's not just what we spend, it's how we spend it. And frankly, we have to spend it in a better way to be more interoperable, to basically create more strategic dilemmas for Putin. So he doesn't think about moving his tanks over a border into the Baltic states, say, or threatening our undersea cables, as his spy ships have been doing recently in UK waters.
Let's talk a bit about how we're going to spend it, because I've been trying to work out how within weeks we can go from a target of spending 3.5% of GDP on defence to 5%. And, just looking at it, I think I kind of worked it out because it's not all going on our core defence, is it? 1.5% of it is going on what's termed as resilience and security. So what does that mean?
So NATO will be publishing the details shortly about what that covers. But effectively, the way I view it is you've got your core defence budget, which includes things like intelligence services that keep us safe, that provide war-fighting capabilities. That's what the 3.5% by 2035 will be spending. The extra that gets to 5%, that's the kind of stuff that keeps us safe as a homeland. And at the moment, if you look at the past few decades, we haven't invested enough in our core defence, but we certainly haven't invested enough in the strategic enablers, the things that keep our resilience safe, the things that the civilian population might be more interacting with than a military side.
You're going to have to explain this to me because I'm kind of coming to this and I'm not really sure what it is. Your national security strategy says one of the things that will count as resilience is energy independence. So what kind of things will we be spending this money on in order to achieve energy independence?
Well, as a government, we've got a clean power mission to get to clean power by 2030. That means decarbonising our grid. But increasingly, that's not just about carbon, it's about energy security. Because if we rely on importing energy from some places that are difficult, then that means that we're not as energy secure. And in the event of a conflict, that insecurity with our energy could be used as a strategic weakness against our nation.
So that's just to be crystal clear then. So spending on renewable energy could be part of this 1.5% of resilience and security for the reasons you've outlined. Is that right?
Well, I mean, we're doing that anyway, but NATO will be publishing the full details very shortly.
Just to be really clear, so the 1.5% on resilience and security, spending on renewable energy could be counted as part of that spend.
Well, NATO will be publishing that full details.
But this is your national security strategy. You said that you're going to get to 5%. It's a very genuine question. I'm not making a judgment on it. Is spending on renewable energy, would that count towards the 1.5%?
So what we need to do is check against the NATO criteria that will be published very shortly, and then people will be able to see what's in there. Our assessment broadly at the moment is that based on the criteria that we've been privy to in those discussions, because it's only just been agreed today, we think we'll be spending around 4.1% with core defence budget and some of those resilience work. Now, that will be a whole range of resilience work that will cover a lot of different sectors. Now, frankly, the UK isn't resilient enough at the moment, and not in any sector.
I get this. But look, wind farms are not exactly tanks and drones, are there? And some people might look at this and think, this is fiddling the books. You're just moving a load of spending that would normally be done by the Department of Energy and putting it under defence.
Well, the full criteria will come out shortly, and that will enable people to take a look at what's in there. But what we have to do is make Britain more resilient.
From the sound of it, it sounds pretty clear that, energy independence, as in spending on renewables, for example, would count as part of this. That's your working assumption.
Well, there's lots of different areas of government spend that could potentially fall within that. Our assessment that we'll publish when the full details come out will start setting that journey. But look, frankly, we haven't spent enough making Britain resilient. We are too vulnerable on our critical systems, energy infrastructure, cyber in particular. Now, we can all do a thing to help on cyber. If everyone watching your show now just updated their operating system, Britain would be safer at the end of their upgrade than they are today. But there's some really serious threats that we're facing on cyber infrastructure, on energy, and on our weak supply chains. So there's lots more we need to do. Now, frankly, if we have a view that the only thing that keeps keeps us safe is those people that work in our military. As brilliant as the men and women are, that's not enough to keep Britain safe. We need a whole of society approach, which includes more resilience from every part of government and every part of society.
You've announced some new jets today. Just explain what's going on there.
Yeah, that's right. So we're buying more F-35 jets. We have an obligation and a commitment as a nation to buy 138 at the lifetime of the programme. And what we're doing is, instead of buying the jets that we use on our aircraft carrier at the moment, which are F-35Bs, now they're the ones with vertical takeoff capability to go up and down. We're buying F-35As. Now they take off as a normal jet does. That means the jets are able to have a greater payload. And in that greater payload, with greater capacity, will be joining the NATO nuclear mission, able to fly with US nuclear weapons. Now, the reason that this is important is we're retaining our nuclear weapons in our submarines, our independent nuclear deterrents, but we know that with the increasing threats that Russia is posing, we need to pose more strategic dilemmas for them. And the ability for us to say, not only do we have this increased capacity, but we can move our jets much more visibly than you can move a submarine, because the submarines, for very obvious reasons, need to be quite secret and hidden. So you can message, you can match escalation with Russia, and you can get to the point where we're deterring a war, because ultimately all these weapons, our defence spending, are there to keep us safe and deter conflict, but if necessary, to defeat it.
If I may, I'm just going to ask you about welfare now as well. A huge issue, of course, for so many people in your party. And we know that at least 123 Labour MPs are planning to vote down the government's welfare bill next week because they're unhappy with the cuts, in particular to payments for disabled people. Is that vote 100% going ahead next week?
Yes, the Deputy Prime Minister confirmed it when she was standing in for the Prime Minister at PMQs today.
OK, that's
We
clear.
will be voting on Tuesday.
That's clear. So about 30% of your party in Parliament are saying that they are unhappy with it, that they may vote against it. Angela Rayner also said tonight that discussions are ongoing about any concessions. So it does sound like you're in dialogue about perhaps making changes.
Yeah, of course we are. I think there's a concern that's very valid and real for lots of my colleagues. They're not doing this to cause trouble or to be argumentative. They're doing it because they have a genuine, heartfelt concern about some of the impacts. Now, I think the welfare reforms as being proposed, on the whole, create a huge opportunity to help people that are currently being failed by a broken system, to help people into work if they can work, for those who can't, to provide more security, bigger payments, and scrapping the awful work capability assessments that so demean those people, especially with long-term conditions who we know can't work but need to just be treated better. There's lots in the welfare reforms I think would be supported cross-party. Where there is concerns, that dialogue, those discussions will continue until the vote and beyond.
I'm sort of struggling to work out, how it's got to the stage that, almost 1 in 3 of your MPs are planning on voting against this. I mean, it suggests to me like a breakdown in that relationship between Number 10 and the parliamentary party. And, Keir Starmer said today, I was very struck by these comments, are there plenty of people and noises off? Yes, of course, there always are, there always have been, there always will be. I mean, it's just bad politics, isn't it? Dismissing this as kind of noises off. These are the MPs he's trying to win over.
Well, I think doing difficult things means that you have to have difficult conversations. If this was easy...
Do you think it's noises off? Do you think that's what your colleagues are doing, noising off?
I think there are some of my colleagues that have a genuine concern about the impact on some of the most vulnerable in society.
So it's not noises off then?
That is a reasonable concern for a parliamentarian to raise. It's also entirely reasonable for government ministers like myself, and especially those in the Department of Work and Pensions, to engage in constructive dialogue with those folks, because for many of the people, I think they want to know that these welfare reforms, when taken as a whole package, will make it easier and better for some of our most vulnerable people in society, will change and fix what is a hideously broken welfare system. I think everyone nearly in every party agrees what we've inherited is not good enough, it is broken. We need to improve that. If it was easy, I think the last lot would have done it. This is hard and difficult, but we've got to make those changes. And even with those changes, we're still spending £16 billion more on welfare than we were at the last general election. So the nation is still supporting people, but if people can work, I think they should be back into work. But to do that, we need to provide genuine more support, and we need more humanity back in our welfare system, and one that actually works. That's what I think these proposals will actually deliver.
Thank you very much indeed. Great to have you on the programme. Luke Pollard speaking to us there.